Chapter 1. Are you really sure you want to leave the Sterling family? Sitting in the cafe, Clara Hawthorne stared blankly at the misty drizzle outside the window. Only when her friend asked again did she manage a faint smile. Of course. What's wrong? You don't want to take me in? How could that be? Her friend protested dramatically over the phone. I wish you'd come right now, Clara chuckled. I still have some things to sort out. It'll be at least a month before I can head over. All right, I'll let the girls know, and we'll throw you a proper welcome party. The call ended abruptly. Looking at the wallpaper on her phone screen after it returned to the home page, a photo of two people, Clara's gaze darkened. She unconsciously caressed the bright, smiling face of the young man in the picture. It was taken on her 10th birthday. She would never forget that day. She had just lost her parents, and Alistair Sterling, in an effort to cheer up her young self, had personally baked her a small cake, changed into a clown costume, and lifted her, dressed in a princess gown, high into the air. Though she no longer remembered the taste of the cake, the image of Alistair's face covered in cream was still fresh in her mind. Unfortunately, times had changed, and the past was irretrievable. Lifting her eyes to the Sterling group building not far away, Clara fell into a reverie. The Sterlings and the Hawthornes were long-standing family friends, and she had often visited the Sterlings' home as a child. For some reason, out of all the people in the Sterling family, she had a particular fondness for Alistair Sterling. Old Mr. Sterling's often overlooked illegitimate son. Every time she went to the Sterlings, she would toddle around on her little legs, shouting, "Uncle Alistair, hold me later." Internal conflict broke out within the Sterling family, and Alistair was nearly killed. Her father, out of kindness, helped Alistair, but suffered retaliation as a result. After a car accident, she became an orphan. Alistair, consumed by guilt, overcame countless obstacles to take her in and raise her meticulously. At that time, Clara was not yet 10, and Alistair was only 22. Alistair wasn't a gentle or meticulous person, but he gave her all his patience and affection. Slowly, she realized she had fallen in love with this man, her nominal uncle, and couldn't extricate herself. So, on her 18th birthday, she carefully prepared a confession. But Alistair showed no joy, instead coldly ordering people to dispose of all the flowers and gifts like trash. "Nonsense, do you even know what you're doing?" Clara shed tears of grievance. "Of course, I know, I just wanted to confess to you. Uncle Alistair, I love you." Alistair's face darkened. "You still know I'm your uncle?" Clara was puzzled. "But we're not related by blood. If you feel uncomfortable with me calling you Uncle Alistair, I can call you Alistair." Alistair found it utterly absurd. For the first time, he yelled at Clara, "How old are you to be talking about love? How can I face your parents if you act like this?" Clara was startled but still tearfully insisted, "I just like you, why are you yelling at me?" "I think you've lost your mind." From then on, Alistair intentionally or unintentionally avoided her. But Clara didn't give up. Whenever she had free time, she would go to Alistair's company, trying to create opportunities to meet him. 4 years passed in a flash, until 2 months ago. Alistair suddenly hired a new secretary, a polished, vibrant, and outgoing woman named Emily Carter. They were seen together constantly, their interactions intimate and ambiguous. Clara could only console herself that it was all just an act. But when she came to deliver Alistair his usual lunch and snacks, he turned around and gave them to Emily. "Don't do these things anymore. I don't want my beloved to misunderstand." Emily smiled brightly. "She won't. I know how you feel about me." Their fingers intertwined, they officially announced their relationship. Clara couldn't accept this reality and could only flee in dismay. So, when her friend, whose invitation she had previously declined, invited her to New York again, she agreed. Clara let out a long sigh and locked her phone screen. Now, it was time to say goodbye to Alistair Sterling. Chapter 2. Returning home, Clara habitually prepared dinner and sat on the sofa waiting for Alistair to come back. Although he rarely came back to this home anymore. Perhaps due to lack of rest recently, Clara unknowingly fell asleep on the sofa. In a daze, she heard the door open and woke up with a start. Lifting her head sharply, she saw Alistair turn on the lights, looking expressionlessly at the food on the table. In the past, he would have nagged her not to wait for him, then quickly reheated the food and eaten with her. But now, Clara smiled bitterly. She knew very well that they could never go back to how things were, but a faint hope still lingered in her heart. At least before she left, she wanted a chance to say a proper goodbye. "Uncle Alistair, next month I have a date with Emily. I'm just going to change and then I'll leave." Alistair didn't even turn to look at her, interrupting her and heading straight upstairs. The sound of footsteps faded, and the entire house fell into a dead silence. Clara had never experienced such silence and loneliness before Emily's appearance. Not even during the time Alistair was angriest with her after her confession. He would still sit silently on the sofa, keeping her company. He would only turn off the lights and leave after she had gone to her room, because Clara had night blindness and was afraid of the dark. And Alistair had said he would never leave her alone in the darkness. But now he had completely forgotten his promise. The sourness in her heart, combined with the cold food, made Clara sit at the table, unable to taste anything. Soon, Alistair came downstairs, changed. Passing the dining table, he noticed the food wasn't steaming, and Alistair's brow furrowed. Clara instinctively wanted to explain. "It's hot, it can be." Alistair interrupted her again. "No need to explain to me, it's your body." With that, he picked up the bag in his hand and strode away. Looking at Alistair's indifferent back, Clara opened her mouth, wanting to ask when he would return. But the words died on her lips. In the past, she could ask about his whereabouts without any hesitation. But now, she had lost that right. Asking again would only make Alistair feel pestered and dislike her even more. In this final period of time together, even if they couldn't go back to how things were, she didn't want their relationship to become even more strained. The next morning, as soon as Clara stepped out of her bedroom, she smelled the fragrant aroma of date and millet porridge. It was her favorite porridge, and Alistair hadn't made it for her in a long time. Some of the gloom in her heart dissipated, and she walked briskly into the kitchen. Only, besides Alistair, Emily was there too. She was wearing a sleeveless dress with Clara's apron over it, a matching set with Alistair's. The two of them snuggled together, and with the steam rising from the pot, the whole kitchen seemed warm and sweet. At this moment, Clara felt utterly redundant. "Clara, you're awake?" Hearing footsteps, Emily turned around and smiled, a hint of triumph in her eyes. "Perfect, we can eat soon. Go wash your hands." Seeing her act like the lady of the house, a wave of bitterness washed over Clara. Matching aprons, of course, should be worn by a real couple. This was good. Perhaps not hearing Clara's reply, Alistair glanced at her, his tone cold. "Why do you look so pale?" Clara shook her head. "No reason, just a bit of low blood sugar. I'll wait for you guys outside." Just like usual, not intruding, staying where she was supposed to. During the meal, Alistair again served Emily porridge and picked out food for her, as if no one else was there. Their eyes were filled with an undeniable affection. Clara ate silently, suddenly realizing that heartache could actually be overcome with gradual desensitization. The more she looked at them, the more her heart ached. When the pain turned to numbness, she could smile as if nothing was wrong. Alistair noticed her change, his gaze darkening, tinged with an indescribable emotion. "What are you smiling about?" Clara froze for a moment. She hadn't expected Alistair to be looking at her. "Nothing, I'm just happy to see Uncle Alistair and my future aunt so loving." Yes, from now on, he would only be Uncle Alistair. Emily shyly buried her face in Alistair's embrace. "Oh, Clara, you're making fun of us. It's just that we usually don't have much time alone at the company, so when we meet privately, we can't help but be a little affectionate. Please don't mind." Clara watched Alistair stroke Emily's hair just as he used to comfort her and continued to smile. "How could I? I was actually worried that Uncle Alistair wouldn't have anyone to take care of him after I leave. Now that you're here, I can rest assured." Alistair's brow furrowed slightly, his hand pausing. "Leave? Where are you going?" Chapter 3. Emily's hair was pulled, and she playfully tapped Alistair. "Alistair, you're hurting me." Alistair snapped back to reality and murmured a few soothing words to her, though his expression remained grim. Emily turned to Clara, her eyes wary. "Clara, are you seeing someone? You know, Alistair raised you since you were little like his own daughter. For you to suddenly say you're leaving, he's definitely worried." His tone was a bit harsh, don't take it to heart. His own daughter. No wonder Alistair reacted so strongly every time she confessed. Not kicking her out of the Sterling family was already a sign of his tolerance. So, from the very beginning, Alistair had never left even a sliver of possibility between them. It was all just her foolish, youthful fantasy. Clara once again recognized the reality of their relationship and then forced a calm smile. "Where did Uncle Alistair think I was going?" Alistair remained silent, just staring intently at her face. Clara grinned. "I just think this house is a bit small, and you and Emily are so lovey-dovey now. Having me, a living person, here all the time will affect your relationship. So I was thinking, I'll leave this little house to you too, and I'll move back to the old family estate." This was the first time Clara had actively wanted to leave Alistair. Because of her night blindness, Alistair had never let her live alone since she was a child. Even for school, she was a day student. As for Clara, she relied on him as a child and loved him as she grew older, never opposing his decisions. This current house was bought by Alistair specifically for Clara when she started university. It held all the excitement and love of Clara's youth. It was once her irreplaceable home. Alistair seemed to relax, his expression softening slightly, but he still didn't agree. Clara was racking her brains on how to persuade him when, unexpectedly, Emily convinced Alistair with just a few words. He looked at Emily dotingly. "All right, as you wish." Seeing the helplessness and indulgence on his face, Clara's heart ached. Her Uncle Alistair truly loved this future aunt of hers deeply, because only a true love could make you willingly let go of past insistence and start a new life. Then he looked at Clara. "The old estate has been vacant for a long time. If you need anything, just ask Mr. Miller. He'll take care of it." Clara smiled and nodded. This way, she could openly pack her things. After all, she had lived here for so long, and if she was going to New York, many things needed to be sorted out in advance. Although she still hadn't figured out how to formally say goodbye to him. But without her, this burden, Alistair should be very happy. She had to go to work after breakfast, and Clara felt a bit awkward. Because of her parents' car accident, she had a childhood trauma related to cars. When she was little, Alistair would hold her when they were in a car, letting her sleep in his arms. Later, she would lie on his lap, wearing earplugs and feigning sleep. Now, such behavior seemed inappropriate. Alistair drove the car out of the garage. Seeing Clara standing frozen, he understood her dilemma but still drove off with Emily. "Emily and I are in a hurry. You can take the subway yourself." Clara saw the dust motes clearly defined in the morning light and, with a bitter smile, headed to the company alone. As soon as she arrived at the company, her superior called her into the office. "Clara, does your Uncle Alistair know about your resignation?" Wendy Davies was the company's DDM and also a senior to Clara by 1 year from university. Since joining the Sterling Group, Clara had always worked under her. Wendy knew a bit about her and Alistair, so when she suddenly saw Clara's resignation approval on the company's internal system, she couldn't help but ask. Clara hesitated for a moment, but still concealed the fact that she was going to New York. Although Alistair certainly wouldn't inquire about her affairs at the company, it was just in case. "Wendy, my resignation process shouldn't require Mr. Sterling's personal approval, right? Stop playing dumb with me." Wendy rolled her eyes at her. "Is it because of Emily? Are you sulking with him?" Clara didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Wendy, I'm not a rebellious teenager." She just wanted to go to a place without Alistair and start her life anew. Wendy nodded. "Speaking of which, what on earth is Alistair Sterling thinking? On one hand, he's flaunting his affection for Emily in public. On the other hand, he took your design sketches and has us working overtime to rush them, as if he's planning a surprise for you." Chapter 4. Design sketches? Clara paused, remembering the bag he was carrying that night, then quickly told herself not to overthink it. "It's not for me, it must be a surprise for Emily." Wendy looked skeptical. "Really? But judging by the style, it doesn't look like something for that woman." Clara forced a smile. "That's why it's a surprise." Wendy sighed regretfully. "Back in the day, you two were the talk of our university. Everyone at Kingston Art University knew that our principal Sterling cherished someone named Clara Hawthorne. Afraid you'd be mistreated at school, he donated an entire art building and millions of dollars worth of top-tier musical equipment, buying himself the title of honorary principal, just so he could keep an eye on you at school. Because you had to participate in club activities and occasionally eat at school, he was worried your delicate stomach couldn't handle it. Not only did he set up a separate small canteen for you in the school cafeteria, but even the chefs there were poached from Michelin-starred restaurants. To watch your play, he rushed back from abroad, got into a car accident on the way, and didn't dare tell you, fearing it would affect your performance. He watched the entire play with both his arms bleeding and bandaged. If you hadn't found out in time, his hands might have been permanently damaged. You probably don't know, but a picture of you in your Juliet costume, tears streaming down your face as you hugged Alistair, was posted on the university forum. It said to still be at the top of the forum rankings, hailed by juniors as the poster couple for pure love. Wendy laughed as she spoke. Back then, my dorm mates and I even made a bet on when you two would break through your shackles and start a passionate, forbidden love affair. I bet a hot pot dinner on it. Unfortunately, Wendy looked very disappointed. Alistair lost his senses and actually fell for that social climber, Emily. Clara was silent for a moment, then smiled, though it looked pained. Uncle Alistair's affection for me was just that of an elder for a junior. Everyone else read too much into it. And she, too, had been swept up, eagerly confessing, only to end up deeply hurt. Wendy shrugged. If you believe that, fine. After all, I don't have an elder who would immediately cancel a multi-million-dollar deal and personally deliver warm ginger tea to my classroom just because he heard I had period cramps. Clara could only smile bitterly and fall silent again. Once, Clara had thought the same as Wendy, believing Alistair's actions towards her were all signs of love, that he just hadn't realized it himself or was unwilling to admit it. But as long as she persisted, sooner or later, Alistair would let go of his inhibitions and understand their mutual feelings. It wasn't until Emily's appearance, and Clara witnessed Alistair's change firsthand, that she understood. Love cannot be hidden. Alistair's repeated rejections were simply because he truly didn't love her. That was all. All right, since you've made your decision, I respect your choice. Wendy couldn't bear to see her looking so miserable. According to company policy, you'll have to pause your current projects. How about this? I'll discuss with others first and see who can take over your work. For today, I'll give you an easy task. You know about the Hope House orphanage, the one Sterling Group sponsors, right? Hearing about work, Clara finally perked up and nodded. Today is Sterling Group's annual visit to the orphanage, led by the general manager's office. Each department sends a representative to assist. I was originally planning to sneak off and relax a bit myself, Wendy looked at her resentfully. Now, you get to enjoy it. Clara initially thought it was an easy task, but when she arrived, she discovered it was manual labor. Hope House Orphanage was quite large, and Sterling Group, being wealthy and generous, donated a lot of supplies every year. Besides food and clothing, there were many daily necessities and study materials, and these items piled up to be quite heavy. Each department had been assigned tasks in advance, and everyone got to work as soon as they got off the bus. Clara looked down at her 7-centimeter heels with some frustration. If she had known, she would have preferred to stay in the office. Sighing inwardly, Clara gritted her teeth and picked up a box of supplies, intending to go inside. Hey, Clara! Clara looked up and saw Emily, in high heels, arm in arm with Alistair, walking quickly towards her. Clara paused for a moment, then greeted them respectfully, Mr. Sterling, Miss Carter. Alistair's brow tightened, looking somewhat displeased, but he nodded in response. Emily, however, chuckled lightly. Clara, you're suddenly so polite, I'm not quite used to it. Clara felt her arms trembling, her breathing a little unsteady. Mr. Sterling, Miss Carter, the children are still waiting for their gifts. If there's nothing else, I'll go in first. Emily waved her hand dismissively. Go on, Alistair and I will go find the director first. We won't go with you. Alistair looked at Clara's somewhat frail back, a faint unease stirring in his heart. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping from his control. Chapter 5. After all the supplies were distributed, Clara's feet were blistered, and a piece of skin had rubbed off her heel. Clara felt like she was walking on knives with every step. After getting a few band-aids from a colleague, Clara went to the small garden alone to rest. Just as she finished treating the wounds on her feet, she ran into Alistair, who was alone. He was carrying a shoebox. Judging by the brand, they were women's sneakers. It was her favorite brand of women's shoes. Every time a new model came out, Alistair would have it sent directly to her closet. Thinking of this, a pang of familiar sourness welled up in Clara's heart. Because she knew that today's shoes belonged to his lover, not to Clara Hawthorne. Seeing Clara, Alistair quickened his pace. He stopped in front of Clara, his tone ambiguous. "Why are you here alone?" Seeing Alistair approach her actively, Clara was a bit slow to react. Since her first confession, Alistair had deliberately distanced himself from her. The last time they were this close was when she was sick. Only then her consciousness was hazy, and she only smelled the same cool cedarwood scent as now. Clara averted her gaze. "Just a little tired, sitting here for a bit." Alistair nodded, his fingers hooking the shoebox, but he said nothing more. In the past, Clara would rack her brains for topics of conversation. Now, even she didn't know what they could talk about. Remembering what Wendy had said today, she casually asked, "Uncle Alistair, Wendy mentioned you took my design sketches and had them rushed. Is it a token of love for Miss Carter?" Clara tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "I wonder which collection you used. My previous designs were rather unrefined. If you'd like, I can design a new version for you both." Alistair froze for a moment, then denied it without thinking. "No, that was my—" "Alistair," Emily's voice interrupted him. Then the click-clack of high heels approached. When she saw what Alistair was holding, her eyes crinkled with a smile. "I was wondering where you disappeared to, slacking off somewhere. Turns out you knew my feet were hurting and went to buy me shoes." She naturally wrapped her arm around Alistair's waist and gave him a sweet kiss. "Thank you, darling." Alistair's hand tightened and then loosened. He then kissed her forehead. "Try them on, see if they fit." Emily took the shoebox from him. As she turned to sit down, she seemed to finally notice Clara. "Clara, you're here too." Emily blinked, her intention to shoo her away perfectly clear. In just a few short hours, this was the third time Clara had sensed Emily's hostility towards her. She figured Emily must have heard about her actions towards Alistair at the company before. But at that time, Emily couldn't legitimately interfere as her relationship with Alistair wasn't confirmed. Later, although she heard Alistair's explanation, she was still uneasy, so she came today to test the waters and assert her claim. Clara wanted to explain, but feared it would be counterproductive. In the end, she tactfully left, leaving her resting spot to the loving couple. After finishing the final cleanup work with her colleagues, the orphanage teacher came to inform everyone that lunch was ready. Although there was no special treatment, everyone's lunch was the same as the children's. But Alistair was the benefactor, after all. To show respect, the director still invited everyone to a private room for the meal. For some reason, Emily insisted that Clara sit next to her. When the teacher brought the soup, Emily waved at him. "Teacher, could you put the soup over here? Alistair's stomach isn't good. I want him to have a bowl of soup to warm his stomach first." A wave of laughter rippled through the group. The teacher delivering the soup also gave Alistair an ambiguous smile and then brought the soup over. The soup was still steaming. Clara instinctively wanted to move away, but with many people in a small space, she really couldn't move her chair. Helplessly, she could only lean back as much as possible to let Emily take the soup bowl. Who knew that in the next second, the scalding soup would spill, drenching Clara's legs entirely. Clara's cry of pain was overshadowed by Emily's shrill scream. Alistair shot up and pulled Emily into his arms. Anyone who didn't know better would have thought Emily was the one who got hurt. Clara's face turned white with pain. The fabric of her pants was scalding hot, and the skin on her legs burned fiercely. She felt her legs gradually losing sensation, so she instinctively looked to Alistair for help. No matter what, Alistair was always the person she trusted most. Chapter 6. However, Alistair disappointed her again. Emily seemed frightened and was crying in Alistair's arms. "Alistair, I'm scared. Can we go home?" Alistair tightened his grip on her waist, then looked down at Clara's hopeful face, quickly making a decision. "Director, please arrange for someone to take her to the hospital. Sterling Group will cover all expenses." With that, he pulled Emily along and strode away. As Emily passed Clara, she looked down at her with a triumphant smirk, as if to say, "See, Alistair still cares about me the most." It wasn't until the door of the private room closed that everyone recovered from the series of events and immediately descended into chaos. "Clara, how are you? Can you walk? Looking at that temperature, it must be a bad burn. If you really can't, how about I carry you to the car?" "Oh my, your hands too? No, we need to get to the hospital quickly, or it might leave a scar." The voices of the crowd fell on Clara's ears like static from an old television, indistinct. She just stared blankly at Alistair's empty seat, silently asking herself, "Alistair, what is even left between us?" In the end, it was the teacher who had delivered the soup who stepped forward, administered first aid to Clara, and then she was taken to the hospital by Sterling Group personnel. The doctor said it was fortunate the soup wasn't too hot, and the first aid was professional. If she followed medical advice, she would most likely not have a scar. However, because the burn area was not small, she still needed to be hospitalized for observation as a precaution. By the time she had seen the doctor and completed the admission procedures, night had fallen, and the colleagues who had accompanied her had left one by one. Eventually, Clara was alone in the hospital room again. Perhaps when people are at their most vulnerable, they always like to reminisce about the past. Listening to the noisy footsteps outside the hospital room, Clara once again remembered when Alistair had first taken her in. At that time, she had just lost her parents, was very depressed, and rarely reacted to what was happening around her. Alistair was also a complete novice at taking care of children. Seeing her grow thinner by the day, he would force-feed her every day. Most of it was various kinds of nourishing soups, because they were nutritious and easy to feed. When he discovered that Clara's mouth was blistered from the heat, he slapped himself hard twice, and, with red eyes, rushed her to the hospital overnight in his arms. From then on, Alistair would always taste anything he fed Clara first. Perhaps the past was too beautiful, and Clara unknowingly fell asleep. She was awakened by a nightmare in the middle of the night and vaguely felt that there was another person in the room. Clara's heart tightened, and only when she smelled the familiar cedarwood scent did she relax. To this day, Clara still didn't know how to interact with Alistair. After a moment's hesitation, Clara still didn't open her eyes, hoping he would leave on his own after he'd had enough. But Alistair seemed to have confirmed something and approached her bed almost inaudibly. Clara felt a shadow fall over her eyes, a warm sensation, hovering near her right cheek, as if he wanted to stroke her. Clara's heart skipped a beat, a little nervous and a little expectant. Did this mean Alistair still cared about her? After all, since her first confession, Alistair had never had any physical contact with her. It seemed he was afraid of accidentally sending some misleading signal, making her even more obsessed. Just as Clara's mind was racing, she felt the blanket on her move, and then the touch of fabric on her chin. It turned out he was just covering her with the blanket. Right, this was just an elder caring for a junior. "Clara, can you stop your wishful thinking?" Afterward, the hospital room fell into dead silence. Clara didn't know when she fell asleep again, nor when Alistair left. Only the next morning, she received a message from the HR department. They told her to rest and recover in the hospital, that the company would cover all expenses, and during this period, her salary would be paid as usual, along with additional compensation. Because Clara had joined the company through formal procedures, and she had deliberately hidden her connection, Alistair had not given her any special treatment. So, up to now, most people in the company thought she and Alistair had no special relationship. Such treatment was already preferential for an ordinary employee of the company. She just didn't know if this preferential treatment was ordered by Alistair or if someone else had taken the initiative. Clara didn't have the energy to think about these minor details. Taking advantage of the boredom of lying in the hospital, she began to seriously consider how to repay Alistair for so many years of care, and how to formally and peacefully say goodbye to him. Chapter 7. After Clara's parents passed away, it was Alistair who stepped in to control the situation at Hawthorne Industries, and he had been managing it all these years. When representing Hawthorne Industries, Alistair only referred to himself as its professional manager, stating that the real person in charge was Clara Hawthorne. What he received from Hawthorne Industries each year was only a fixed monthly salary and a year-end bonus. But Clara knew that all this money combined couldn't compare to what Alistair had spent on her over the years. Thinking of her luxurious life since childhood and the houses Alistair had bought for her around the world for her education, the buildings and equipment he had donated to various schools, Clara couldn't help but get a headache, wondering if her shares, plus the Hawthorne family's old estate and various properties, could even cover this debt. With this in mind, Clara couldn't sit still any longer and immediately messaged her private wealth advisor. She asked him to quickly compile a list of her assets and conduct a valuation. After a moment's hesitation, she then asked a friend if they knew any familiar lawyers. She wanted to consult about some equity transfer matters. Only after dealing with a series of matters did she feel a slight sense of relief. Next, all that remained was the farewell. Only for this, Clara still hadn't found the right moment. Perhaps she wasn't ready to say it yet. Unknowingly, Clara had already spent half a month in the hospital. After that night, Alistair had never come again, not even a phone call or message. It seemed he had forgotten about Clara Hawthorne. The day before her discharge, Emily Carter came uninvited. She didn't even knock, just walked in and sat down on the sofa. Then, crossing her legs and propping her chin on one hand, she looked at Clara's slightly pale face, her eyes full of dissatisfaction. "Hey, I've already packed all your things and sent them to the old Sterling residence. After you're discharged, go there directly. Don't disturb Alistair and me." Clara froze for a moment. Had Alistair moved in with her so quickly? No wonder he hadn't had time for her. He was lost in blissful romance. Ignoring the slight discomfort in her heart, Clara nodded indifferently. It wasn't like there was anything important, and it saved her the trouble. Emily rolled her eyes at her, then asked bluntly, "Also, Alistair has been supporting you for 23 years. How much longer are you planning to freeload?" Without Alistair present, she unreservedly unleashed her malice, like a fighting cock new to the battlefield. Clara's lips curved into a smile. Did this woman really think she was a pushover? Did Alistair know his lover was like this in private? "Clara Hawthorne, what do you mean?" Emily saw the smile on her face and her expression stiffened. "Are you mocking me?" Clara nodded without hesitation. "That's right. Although your emotional intelligence isn't high, at least your IQ is normal. Otherwise, I'd start to suspect that Uncle Alistair fell for you because you're uniquely naive." Clara had never been one to shy away from trouble. After all, Alistair had taught her since she was young. We don't cause trouble, but we're not afraid of it either. Even now, without Alistair backing her, Clara had her own principles and bottom line. Emily hadn't expected her to talk back, and her lips trembled with anger. "Clara Hawthorne, don't forget, I am Alistair's publicly acknowledged girlfriend. To put it nicely, you, Clara Hawthorne, are Alistair's adopted daughter. To put it bluntly, you're just a leech. I am the future lady of the Sterling Group, your nominal aunt. You dare speak to me like this? Aren't you afraid I'll have Alistair kick you out of the company?" As Emily's volume increased, the smile on Clara's face grew wider. "If you really had that kind of power, you wouldn't be standing here alone in front of me today." Emily's breath hitched in anger, her face contorting as she glared at Clara. Clara didn't want her to be an eyesore any longer and spoke to dismiss her. "Miss Carter, if there's nothing else, please leave. I have things to do." Hearing this, Emily miraculously suppressed her temper, elegantly adjusting her bangs a few times. "Ah, I almost forgot. I came especially today to invite you to my birthday party and Alistair's and my engagement party." With that, she smiled and took out an invitation card, opened it, and handed it to Clara. At the bottom, clearly visible, were her and Alistair's handwritten signatures. Clara's hand under the blanket clenched tightly, but ultimately she didn't take it. Emily wasn't annoyed, tossed it in front of her and reminded her again, "By the way, the location is the Windsor Hotel, and the time is next Friday evening. Don't be late. I believe Alistair will be even happier if he receives your blessing." With that, she walked out, head held high. Clara stared at the invitation in silence for a long time, then sent Alistair a message. "Uncle Alistair, next Friday morning is the anniversary of my parents' passing. Can you accompany me to the cemetery?" Chapter 8. Alistair agreed to her request, and Clara breathed a sigh of relief, to bid him farewell in front of her parents and then offer her blessings. This way, Alistair wouldn't have to worry about letting her parents down. This was the best farewell and engagement gift Clara could think of for Alistair. Once she made up her mind, Clara felt like time was running out. For the next week, Clara devoted herself entirely to clearing her assets and transferring her equity. It was only when Alistair came to the old residence to pick her up that Clara realized her departure was imminent. Today was a rare sunny day. Early in the morning, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden light. Alistair drove himself, waiting at the gate of the old residence. A pillow and blanket were prepared in the passenger seat. Clara hesitated for a moment, then got into the back. Alistair's expression darkened slightly, but he pursed his lips and said nothing. Today, Clara was unusually quiet, which Alistair wasn't used to. So he took the initiative to break the silence. "Have you been all right at the old residence lately?" Clara nodded gently upon hearing his words. "Yes, quite good." After a pause, she asked in return, "And you, Uncle Alistair?" Alistair nodded, then remembered Clara couldn't see him, so he also said, "Quite good." Afterward, both fell into silence. "Uncle Alistair, I—" Ring, ring, ring. Alistair's phone ringing interrupted Clara. Clara smiled bitterly. She had finally mustered the courage to speak, but it seemed she still couldn't get the words out. Alistair glanced at her, then answered the phone. Judging by his tone, the caller was likely Emily. After all, besides her, no one could make the powerful head of Sterling Group so troubled. After placating the other person, Alistair asked, "What were you trying to say just now?" Clara smiled and shook her head. "Nothing important, it can wait." Alistair didn't press further. By the time they reached the cemetery, the sun was already high in the sky. After placing the flowers and offerings and carefully wiping her parents' tombstones, Clara stood up, looked at Alistair, and prepared to formally bid him farewell. "Clary, I want to talk to your parents alone for a while." Clara stiffened. She hadn't heard Alistair call her that in a long time. After a complex glance at him, Clara nodded and stepped away. There was no rush. Walking through the dappled shadows of the cypress trees, Clara saw Alistair kneeling before her parents' graves. His mouth moved continuously, his expression sorrowful and pained. Finally, as if atoning, he bowed his head to the ground several times. Clara was very surprised. What could possibly make Alistair act like this? Was it because he was getting engaged and could no longer take care of her, so he felt guilty? A lump formed in Clara's throat. Apart from not loving her, Alistair had truly given too much for her over the years. But in matters of love, no one could blame anyone. Clara took a deep breath and strode forward. Her story with Alistair had begun with him, let it end with her. "Uncle Alistair, I have something to tell you." Hearing Clara's words, Alistair, still kneeling, paused and then stood up somewhat flustered. He straightened his clothes, his eyes red as he looked at Clara, his voice hoarse. "What's so urgent?" Clara composed herself and said as she walked, "I wanted to say, thank you for your care and tolerance all these years. I know I always cause trouble, have a bad temper, and always make you angry, adding to your burdens. But these years living with you have been the happiest days of my life, truly. So today, in front of Mom and Dad, I hope you'll let me be willful one more time. I want to tell you." Before she had taken 2 steps, Clara felt a force from behind her, and then she was forced to turn around. Slap! Under Alistair's stunned and astonished gaze, a loud slap landed on Clara's face. "Clara Hawthorne, can you have some shame? Alistair is my fiancé now." Emily, still not satisfied, wanted to strike again, but was stopped by Alistair's stern voice. Emily pouted, then pushed Clara to the ground. "What are you doing here? Didn't I say I'd be back soon?" Alistair strode over, looking at Emily with displeasure. Emily stomped her foot petulantly. "You dare say that if I hadn't come, who knows what this adopted daughter of yours would have done? To confess to her adoptive father, who has a fiancé, right in front of her own parents' graves, isn't she afraid they'll jump out of their graves in anger?" Alistair Sterling, how did you raise such a worthless tramp? Enough. Emily, seeing Emily's words growing uglier, Alistair's veins bulged with anger. Seeing Alistair so furious for the first time, Emily didn't dare say more, merely glaring viciously at Clara again. Alistair also looked disappointedly at the expressionless Clara on the ground. "Clara Hawthorne, you've disappointed me greatly. It's my fault too, for being too indulgent with you, which led you to develop these inappropriate feelings for me. Starting tomorrow, you will stay home and reflect on your actions. You can return to the company when you've figured things out." With that, he left Clara there again, hastily departing with Emily. It wasn't until the 2 of them disappeared at the end of the road that Clara came back to her senses. So, Alistair was still worried she harbored unrealistic fantasies about him. Clara gave a bitter laugh and got up from the ground. Perhaps some farewells only needed to be hinted at. Chapter 9. Dragging her exhausted body, Clara didn't get back to the company until noon. "I told you, how could a newcomer dare to pester our Mr. Sterling every day? Turns out she's the Sterling family's adopted daughter, trying to use her proximity to her advantage." Too bad our Mr. Sterling isn't interested. But some people are just shameless, trying to use the memory of her deceased parents to force Mr. Sterling's hand. Yeah, she acts like a high society princess, but her intentions. Tusk, tusk, tusk. If you ask me, Mr. Sterling is too soft-hearted. Why bother with sentiment for someone like her? He should just kick her out. Exactly, to shamelessly come to the company after being suspended. I feel ashamed to be in the same company as someone like that. If you want to talk about pitiful, it's Emily. She can't hit her or scold her. Her future days are probably going to be tough. My sympathies. 1. All along the way, she was met with these unrestrained rumors and gossip. It wasn't hard to imagine what kind of rumors Emily had spread in the company in just a few short hours. But Clara turned a deaf ear and knocked directly on Wendy Davies' office door. Her presence at the company now was purely based on her professional ethics. Other people's discussions meant nothing to her anymore. Wendy, is there anything else I need to hand over regarding my work here? Seeing Wendy, Clara got straight to the point. If not, I'm thinking of not coming in tomorrow. Hearing this, Wendy put down her mouse, her expression complex. You indeed don't need to come in tomorrow. The general manager's office just sent an email saying you're suspended starting tomorrow. It seemed Alistair and Emily still didn't know she had already submitted her resignation. Well, after all, she was just a junior assistant in the design department before. The resignation process wouldn't have reached either of them. But after today's commotion, Alistair would receive the news by tomorrow at the latest. In that case, she would have to leave tonight. Seeing Clara in a daze, Wendy hesitated for a moment, then asked, Clara, are you all right? Clara paused. Wendy, why do you ask? This morning, Emily announced your relationship with Alistair in the secretarial department, plus your previous actions. Anyway, everyone is discussing you privately now. Saying very unpleasant things. Clara nodded. I heard it all on my way here. Wendy became anxious. Then if you leave now, won't that just confirm their words? Won't Emily become even more arrogant in the company? Just as she was speaking, Wendy's assistant knocked and entered, saying that Secretary Carter had come to pick up the set of jewelry Alistair had requested to be rushed. Look at that. They're not even married yet, and she dares to come directly to me for things, bypassing Mr. Sterling. Wendy rolled her eyes. If she really becomes the lady of Sterling Group in the future, my department will probably become her personal jewelry supplier. Clara comforted her. This was originally hers anyway. Maybe Mr. Sterling asked her to come get it. Wendy was noncommittal and muttered under her breath, that's not necessarily true. Then she waved her hand, telling her assistant to give Emily the items. Wendy, if there are no further issues with work, I'll go pack my things now. Having received a definitive answer, Clara was also eager to leave. Wait a moment. Wendy stopped her. Are you still going to the engagement party tonight? Clara didn't hesitate. Yes. Without a formal farewell, she would witness his happiness with her own eyes. Then she could leave without regrets. At 9 in the evening, the engagement party officially began. The engagement party of the head of Sterling Group was, naturally, a lavish affair. The attendees were all prominent figures from various circles. Many of them knew Clara and were now gathered in whispers, enjoying the spectacle. Some also wanted to come and cause trouble for her, but Clara skillfully diffused their attempts. After all, it was Alistair's engagement party. She didn't want to stir up trouble. After the host's opening remarks, Alistair and Emily, amidst thunderous applause, walked down the red carpet and onto the stage. Emily wore a custom-made solid color gown, a sweet and shy smile on her face. Although Alistair's expression was a bit grim, his every move protected her in his embrace. In everyone's eyes, they were the undisputed golden couple. Although she had mentally prepared herself before coming, Clara nearly lost control of her emotions when she saw the jewelry set Emily was wearing. How could Alistair? How could he? That was the dowry her parents had left for her. Clara stared intently at the necklace around Emily's neck, her heart aching as if pierced by a knife. She didn't even realize her nails were digging into her palms. She quietly looked at Alistair's indistinct face under the lights, suddenly feeling that he was a stranger. Was this still the Alistair who had promised never to hurt her again? Was this the price she had to pay for having loved him? To lose everything. Clara let tears stream down her face, then clenched her bleeding fists and turned to leave without looking back. Alistair Sterling, from this day forward, we owe each other nothing. Chapter 10. By the time the plane landed in New York, it was already early the next morning. Entering the arrivals hall, Clara immediately spotted her good friend, Gemma Asher. Gemma was dressed in black biker gear, a lollipop in her mouth. Standing beside her was a man in white casual wear, holding a bouquet of blooming sunflowers. "Clara, over here." Gemma saw her too and immediately waved excitedly. Seeing her friend's long-unseen smile, Clara's heavy heart suddenly lifted. "Gem, I missed you so much." "HMPH, you missed me and only now you're back." They looked at each other and smiled, then hugged tightly. Everything was understood without words. "By the way, this is my brother, Ethan." Gemma took the flowers from Ethan's hand and gave them to Clara. "He's just here as the driver today. You can pretend he doesn't exist." Clara rolled her eyes at her, then extended her hand to Ethan. "Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Clara Hawthorne." Ethan's face was pale, as if he hadn't seen the sun in a long time, but his eyes were bright and alert. He hesitated for a few seconds, then extended his fingertips and quickly touched Clara's palm. "Hello." His tone was so cold it made him seem unapproachable. Clara felt a bit awkward. "I'm sorry to trouble you so late." Ethan shook his head. Gemma facepalmed. "Clara, he's always like this. Don't mind him." Clara didn't mind, but she didn't know how to interact with him. "By the way, Gem, where's the thing I asked for?" She had to quickly change the subject. "Ah, right." Gemma kicked Ethan's leg and held out her hand. "Where is it?" Ethan glanced at the shoe print on his pant leg, then looked at Gemma espresso. "Gemma, I know, I'll buy you a new pair, all right?" Gemma grumbled. "I've never seen such a fussy guy." "Hand it over, quickly." Only then did Ethan slowly take out a SIM card from his pocket and hand it to Clara. "Thank you." With that, Clara took out her phone, turned it off, changed the SIM card, and turned it back on, all in one smooth motion. Finally, she cleanly snapped the old card in half. Clara used her new number to call Gemma and instructed, "I'll be using this number from now on." Gemma's eyes flickered. "Clara, tell me honestly, what exactly happened between you and Alistair Sterling? Did he bully you? If he did, I'll fly over there right now and break his legs." Looking at Gemma's serious eyes, Clara felt a warm current flow from her heart through her entire body. She had no doubt that if she said yes, Gemma would immediately go on a rampage, but Clara didn't want to cause her trouble. So she linked arms with Gemma and said, half truthfully, "What are you thinking? You know, besides Uncle Alistair, I don't have anyone else I'm attached to over there. Now that he has his own family, I can't always be bothering him. I'm just afraid I won't be able to stop myself from contacting him, so I cut off that thought. It has nothing to do with Uncle Alistair. How could he possibly bully me?" Gemma stared at her face for a full minute before nodding. "That's true. Although Alistair rejecting your confession was unexpected for me. But to say he would bully you, I absolutely wouldn't believe it. Because anyone who knew Clara Hawthorne knew that Alistair Sterling's affection for her bordered on obsessive." "Right," Clara said, her expression unchanged, pulling Gemma along. Let's go home. I'm starving after such a long flight." Gemma was about to nod when she felt something was off. "Clara Hawthorne, where's your luggage?" Clara dragged Gemma, not daring to look back. "What are you, the esteemed boss of home, afraid you don't have clothes for me to wear?" Gemma frowned, stopping in her tracks, anger burning in her eyes. "Clara Hawthorne, if you're hiding something from me, you'd better confess honestly. You asked me to buy you a plane ticket in the middle of the night, changed your number as soon as you got off the plane, and now you don't even have any luggage. This doesn't look like you're coming here for work. Anyone would believe you ran away from home or were kicked out." Clara still wanted to struggle. "It's not that exaggerated, if you don't tell me, I'll call Alistair Sterling right now and ask him myself." Clara was speechless, silent for a moment, and finally compromised. "Something did happen, originally." Gemma exploded, interrupting her again. I knew it, I'm definitely going to break his legs. I'm buying a ticket right now." Clara, seeing her actually take out her phone to buy a ticket, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Gem, calm down, it's not what you think." Gemma wouldn't listen. "Clara, don't worry, I'll definitely get justice for you. Even if I can't beat him, I still have my brother. Don't let his frail appearance fool you. Taking on 5 opponents is no problem for him. Only then did Clara remember there was another person beside them and quickly asked Ethan to help persuade Gemma, who knew that Ethan had no intention of stopping her and even nodded seriously. I can fight, Clara. In the end, Clara had to agree to a series of unequal treaties to temporarily dissuade Gemma. Looking at Gemma, who was still pouting in the car, Clara felt a wave of emotion. It felt so good to have a good friend. Chapter 11. Even though Alistair Sterling was in good physical condition, by the time he returned to the hotel lounge, he couldn't help but rub his temples tiredly. He hadn't expected a fake engagement to be this exhausting. If he were to actually have a wedding with Clara in the future, wouldn't it drain him completely? Thinking of Clara's endearing pouting and complaining, a faint smile touched Alistair's lips. Even the fatigue in his body lessened considerably. Boss, the items are packed. Should I send them back to the design department? At this moment, Emily, though wearing the same gown, was respectful and reserved in her demeanor, maintaining a social distance of 1 meter from Alistair. She was like a completely different person from the one Clara had seen earlier. Alistair composed himself, looked at the secure box in her hand, and extended his. Give it to me. Although her boss hadn't said anything, as a professional secretary, Emily understood she had made a big mistake today. I apologize, boss. It was an oversight on my part today. I was forced to use the jewelry you had custom made for Miss Hawthorne. Alistair didn't look up. Half a year's bonus. Emily's face stiffened, but she managed to maintain a smile. Yes, sir. What's the situation with Miss Carlyle? She's been escorted back to her country by her father's men. Moreover, the Duke has also agreed to help us enter the European market. Hearing this, Alistair's expression finally improved a little. After spending so much time and energy, and making the little one suffer so much, there was finally some progress. Rarely seeing her boss in a good mood in private, Emily took the opportunity to ask some slightly overstepping questions. Boss, this matter can be considered closed for now. Regarding our plan, should I find an opportunity to explain it to Miss Hawthorne? Hearing this, Alistair picked up his phone and checked it. No missed calls, no unread messages. Abnormally quiet. Alistair felt an inexplicable unease in his heart. The matter with Miss Carlyle had happened suddenly, and Alistair hadn't had time to inform Clara in advance. Besides, he didn't want her to get involved in a business war. After all, Miss Carlyle had a powerful background and was unreasonable. If something truly happened, Alistair wouldn't be able to protect her from so far away. He was unwilling to risk Clara's personal safety. However, given how much Clara cared about him, he didn't know how much the recent events had hurt her, especially tonight. She might still be crying in some corner. Thinking of this, Alistair couldn't sit still and took out his phone to message Clara. 10 minutes passed, no reply. Alistair's brow furrowed. Was she so angry she wouldn't even reply to his messages? So he called, but the prompt said she was out of service range. He called 3 times in a row, with the same result each time. Alistair's face turned completely cold, and even his gaze towards Emily lacked any warmth. Call Clary. Emily's scalp tingled under his gaze, and she immediately took out her phone and dialed. Good heavens, the world was about to explode when he heard the cold, robotic female voice again. Alistair's hands were already showing prominent veins from excessive force. Could something have happened? Anxiety, nervousness, fear, various negative emotions were causing Alistair to lose his composure. Boss, the old residents, sensing danger, Emily blurted out. She knew better than anyone how important Miss Hawthorne was to the boss. Last time she accidentally scalded Miss Hawthorne, the boss had nearly taken her life. If something else happened to Miss Hawthorne, she would really have to atone with her death. Alistair regained some composure and with trembling hands dialed the number for the old residents. Mr. Miller, has Miss Hawthorne returned? She has, young master. Alistair breathed a sigh of relief, but Mr. Miller's tone changed. But she changed out of her gown, took her bag, and left again. I thought she had gone back to Willow Creek. Willow Creek? That's right, how could he not have thought of that? Willow Creek was an irreplaceable place for both of them. Get the car ready, back to Willow Creek. Alistair couldn't wait another moment. At this time, Emily didn't dare to provoke him and hurried to follow. In the car, Emily asked cautiously, Boss, the surprise at Willow Creek. Alistair looked grim. Who cares about that now? Clary isn't here. Is the surprise for you to eat? Emily gave a sheepish laugh and tactfully closed her mouth. The boss right now was terrifyingly fierce. Halfway there, Mr. Miller called. "Young master, it's bad. Miss Hawthorne seems to have run away from home." Chapter 12. "What do you mean? Seems?" Alistair's roar made the car windows tremble. He enunciated each word. "Mr. Miller, make yourself clear." Mr. Miller sounded troubled. "Well, young master, Miss Hawthorne left something for you. Why don't you come back and see for yourself?" A hint of crimson tinged Alistair's eyes, and his icy tone was particularly chilling in the car. "Turn around, back to the old residence. Emily, get someone to locate Clary's position immediately. Even if you have to tear this city apart, find her for me," Emily wailed inwardly. Being the boss's secretary is so hard daily work, business trips, not to mention those. Ever since she took on this high-risk, high-reward side job of being a shield, she hadn't had a single good day. Not only did she have to shield the boss's beloved from Miss Carlyle's overt and covert attacks, but she also had to play the villainess in front of his beloved to keep her away from the vortex. She was clearly just acting according to the agreement, but the way the boss looked at her in private every day made it seem like he wanted to skin her alive. Now that it was finally over, the protagonist had run away. The boss wouldn't blame her for this, would he? Alistair couldn't hear her inner thoughts. After giving the order, he remained silent. His left index finger tapped restlessly on the seat, while his right hand constantly made calls and sent messages on his phone. Judging by his increasingly terrifying expression, there was no good news. As soon as they reached the old residence, before the car even came to a complete stop, Alistair rushed into the house like a madman. Upon seeing the travel-worn Alistair, Mr. Miller told him the items were in Miss Hawthorne's room. Alistair didn't stop for a moment, taking the stairs 3 steps at a time. The room was clean and tidy, warmly and brightly decorated, with remnants of Clara's childhood innocence still preserved in a small corner. The unique, faint fragrance of Clara lingered in the air, and Alistair's steps lightened. He first looked in the wardrobe, then rummaged through the drawers. Finally, he turned to look at the bed, where an envelope addressed to be opened by Uncle Alistair only lay on an exquisite gift box. Alistair opened the letter and read it quickly. Just the first paragraph made Alistair grit his teeth, his eyes glinting fiercely. Good, 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 what a way to repay my years of care. By the time he finished reading, Alistair was already contorted with anger. What a wishing me happiness and no longer disturbing me. He tore the letter into pieces, crumpled it into a ball, slammed it on the floor, and then crushed the paper ball under his foot. Then he picked up the gift box. Inside was a bank card and various transfer agreements, signed and stamped. Alistair didn't even look at them, directly smashing the box onto the dressing table. After a loud crash, the bottles and jars on the dressing table shattered on the floor, and the makeup mirror didn't escape unscathed. Alistair's roar then echoed throughout the old residence. Where the hell is everyone? Mr. Miller and Emily, hearing the commotion, hurried upstairs to await orders, looking at each other in dismay at the sight of the ransacked room. Mr. Miller had watched Clara grow up and was also anxious at this moment. "Young master, has Miss Hawthorne really run away from home? What did she say in the letter?" Alistair, thinking of the letter's contents, laughed out of extreme anger. "She didn't run away from home. She's trying to sever ties with me." Clara had transferred all her assets to him, but hadn't taken anything from the house. What was this if not drawing a clear line and severing ties? At this moment, Alistair was like an out-of-control beast, his ferocity exposed, scaring Mr. Miller into silence. Alistair's voice was hoarse, his breathing chaotic. "Mr. Miller, has Clary been acting unusually lately? Or has she been in frequent contact with outsiders?" "Well," Mr. Miller gave him a strange look and hesitantly replied, "The most unusual thing, wasn't it Miss Hawthorne moving back to the old residence alone?" Mr. Miller's words jolted Alistair. He suddenly remembered Clara's various abnormalities during this period. So she had been planning to leave all along, and he hadn't noticed at all looking at the still unupdated messages on his social app. Alistair violently slammed his phone onto the floor. The shattered screen reflected his enraged face. Seeing Emily cowering like a mouse nearby, Alistair became even more irritable. "Has your brain been eaten by a dog? Where's the location?" Emily instantly snapped back to reality. "Boss, we're already applying for location access. We should have results soon. Please try to remain calm." The way Alistair looked at Emily made it seem like he wanted to kill her. Clara had disappeared right under his nose. How could he remain calm? If you can't get a location, can't you check bank transactions and call logs? Alistair laughed maniacally. If you can't find her by dawn, you're fired. All of you, get out. 5 seconds later, only Alistair remained in the room. He staggered to Clara's bedside and sat down, staring blankly at the photo frame on the nightstand. Time passed bit by bit. Before dawn, there was finally news. "Boss, we found her." The last place Miss Hawthorne appeared was New York Airport. Chapter 13. Alistair paused. New York? He suddenly remembered Gemma Asher, who always joined Clara in her university antics. Gemma was in New York. When they graduated, Gemma had even tried to convince Clara to stay in New York. Could Gemma have said something to Clara again, leading to her departure this time? The thought made Alistair unable to sit still. At this moment, all the unease and fear, worry and pain of the entire night transformed into anger. He gritted his teeth, slammed his fist on the headboard, and rushed out with a ferocious expression. Emily trotted behind him, asking timidly, "Boss, where are we going now?" Alistair's face was frosty as he enunciated each word. "Where do you think?" Emily shivered and hesitantly reminded him, "Boss, the shareholders' meeting?" Alistair's eyes were bloodshot. To hell with the shareholders' meeting, Emily ducked her head and quickly booked him the earliest flight. In just a few short hours, it felt like centuries had passed for Alistair. Memories swirled in his mind. Thinking of every little moment with Clara, his heart was filled with mixed emotions. Alistair loved Clara. Although he was mindful of societal norms and ethics, he was more afraid that Clara would regret it in the future. So he refused her again and again, tested her again and again, to confirm that Clara would always choose him. And Clara indeed, as he wished, remained steadfast every time. So Alistair didn't understand why Clara would suddenly leave this time. They clearly loved each other. He had already prepared his confession to Clara at Willow Creek. He had even planned their future. Alistair suddenly felt a sense of resentment and despair, as if betrayed and abandoned by his beloved. He selfishly wanted to deceive himself, to say that Gemma must have said something to Clara. But he also knew clearly that Clara was not easily swayed by others. Since she had chosen to leave, she would definitely, as she said, no longer disturb him. Alistair couldn't accept it, nor could he tolerate it. He secretly blamed Gemma, yet couldn't ignore the growing unease in his heart. He desperately needed confirmation of something. So Alistair asked Emily, "Why do you think she left without saying goodbye?" Emily paused. Perhaps she wanted to say it but never found the chance. Alistair froze, thinking of what happened on the day they went to the cemetery. Had she already decided to leave that day? Alistair's heart turned cold, his expression even uglier. "I mean, why did she suddenly decide to leave me?" Emily chose her words carefully. "Boss, we all know you like Miss Hawthorne, but she doesn't know it herself." Alistair frowned. "Weren't we about to surprise her on the day she confessed to me?" Emily asked sincerely, "Boss, since you like Miss Hawthorne, why did you reject her time and time again?" Alistair pondered for a moment. "I was afraid she would regret it." "So you kept testing her to see if her feelings had changed?" Alistair silently acknowledged it. Emily pressed her forehead, worried about their future. "Boss, have you ever told Miss Hawthorne about your thoughts?" Alistair's face stiffened. "She doesn't need to know these things, she just needs to be happy." Emily opened her mouth, choosing her words carefully. "Boss, Miss Hawthorne has liked you for so many years, but has never received a response from you. Plus, recently, our actions in front of her. What I mean is, even the strongest feelings can be exhausted." Alistair's heart ached. He understood. He was used to preparing everything thoroughly, used to clearing all obstacles for Clara, including their relationship. So he repeatedly confirmed Clara's true feelings and presumptuously planned their future in secret. He thought this was their unspoken happiness, but he forgot that a person's heart cannot withstand constant probing and feelings cannot wait forever. Exhausted meant they no longer had a future. Chapter 14. Seeing Alistair finish 2 cups of coffee without a word, Emily felt a little weary. "Boss, should I contact Miss Asher now?" Alistair seemed not to hear, just staring blankly at the people coming and going at the airport. Clara's location had disappeared at the New York airport. Emily said it was because the SIM card had been destroyed. The faint hope in Alistair's heart was completely extinguished, because he knew Clara was determined not to see him again. So even if he got Gemma Asher's contact information, Alistair hesitated. He wanted to tell Clara face to face that he loved her too, that everything before was a misunderstanding. But he was also afraid it would all be in vain. After all, belated affection is worthless. Emily couldn't wait any longer and dialed Gemma Asher's number on her own initiative. "Miss Asher, hello. This is Emily Carter, secretary to Mr. Alistair Sterling, CEO of the Sterling Group. It's like this, our CEO has something he'd like to discuss with you regarding Miss Clara Hawthorne. I was wondering if you're available now?" Unsure what was said on the other end, Emily sounded slightly embarrassed. "Miss Asher, this matter is rather complicated, it's all a misunderstanding." "All right, please wait a moment." Unsure what the other person said, Emily quickly handed the phone to Alistair. "Boss, Miss Asher has something to say to you." Alistair had been silent for too long, and Gemma was growing impatient. "Alistair Sterling, I didn't come looking for you, yet you came knocking on my door?" Only then did he put the phone to his ear. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to know if Clary is with you." Gemma sneered. "You still have the nerve to mention her? Let me tell you, this isn't over between us." "Where are you now?" "A cafe at the New York airport." "You just wait for me." Looking at the disconnected call, Alistair had Emily order 2 more coffees. After nearly 2 days of exhausting work and worry, his body and mind were protesting. He could only rely on coffee to keep going. Before long, Gemma Asher pushed open the cafe door. Seeing Alistair and Emily sitting by the window, Gemma strode towards them. Slap, slap. Without a word, Gemma first gave Alistair 2 resounding slaps. "Boss," Emily was startled, looking at Alistair's face, unsure what to do. Alistair swallowed the blood in his mouth and told Emily to leave first. Emily looked at Gemma, hesitating, but eventually turned and walked out. "You came here without telling her, did you?" Alistair's expression was calm, as if he didn't care about what had just happened. Gemma raised an eyebrow. "Of course." Seeing Gemma admit Clara was with her, Alistair breathed a sigh of relief. At least she was safe. Seeing Alistair had no intention of speaking, Gemma spoke first. "I thought you were the last person in the world who would hurt Clara." Alistair lowered his head, his fingers intertwined. "What if I said this was all really a misunderstanding?" Gemma scoffed. "Does that matter?" "Mr. Sterling, you should know. In matters of the heart, some misunderstandings, if left for too long, become reality. Just like you've always let Clara misunderstand that you don't like her. Now she finally believes it." Alistair's mind went briefly blank. "Was it like that?" Gemma looked profound. "Mr. Sterling, when Clara personally told me she was giving up on loving you, your misunderstandings and the facts became meaningless to me." No matter how much she pressed, Clara only said she had given up loving Alistair. She wouldn't say another word. If she wasn't hurt to the extreme, how could she be like this? So, as soon as they met today, Gemma had slapped Alistair hard twice. Alistair's eyes stung. She personally said, "She's giving up?" Hearing those 2 words with his own ears, Alistair's eyes finally reddened. He had imagined countless endings between him and Clara, but none of them involved her saying, "Give up first." Chapter 15. Alistair was overwhelmed by extreme sorrow, and Gemma showed a hint of pity, but seeing his stubborn gaze, she eventually nodded. Matters of the heart were best concluded, whether happily or sadly. Otherwise, more than just 2 people would suffer. "Why? I don't understand." "Clearly." Alistair stared blankly out the window, muttering to himself. Gemma couldn't hear clearly, nor did she care. Her purpose for coming today had been achieved. "Mr. Sterling, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving." "Wait," Alistair suddenly turned his head. "One last question. Why did she come to New York?" Gemma looked at him deeply. "I asked her to come." Alistair's heart stirred slightly. "Ever since she left New York, I've asked her to come back every year." But only this time she agreed. With that, Gemma left without looking back. Alistair was stunned for a long time, then, like an old man in his twilight years, slowly leaned back in his chair. When Emily returned, she saw him looking utterly dejected. "Boss, where are we going now?" She called out many times before Alistair finally responded. His Adam's apple bobbed, and his voice came out dry and raspy. "Has Clary's location been found?" Emily wanted to ask why he didn't ask Gemma, but thinking of those 2 slaps, she kept her mouth shut. "We're checking." "Boss, you need to rest now." Alistair nodded silently. Emily quickly booked a hotel, and the two finally had a place to stay. Even though his body had reached its limit, Alistair's mind still couldn't rest. Clara's laughter, tears, anger, and scolding replayed in his dreams like a movie. Clara held high by him, waving and laughing in midair. Clara, having lost her parents, wailing in a hospital corner. Clara, waking from a nightmare, crying out Uncle Alistair in panic from her bed. Clara, standing on the awards stage, dazzling under the spotlight. Clara, standing amidst candlelight, holding roses and confessing her love to him. Clara, rejected by him time and again, gradually becoming silent and withdrawn. And finally, Clara, vanishing before him like a burst bubble, completely gone. Alistair woke from his dream, his face covered in cold sweat. Just as he finished drinking water, he heard a knock on the door. He opened it to find Emily. "Boss, Miss Hawthorne's location has been found." Alistair's hand trembled, and without thinking, he changed his clothes and went out. An hour later, the car stopped across the street from a villa. Only the garden lights of the villa were on. The owner was not home. Emily turned off the engine, and she and Alistair silently watched the villa gate. Before long, two headlights appeared at the end of the road. A red sports car sped over and stopped at the villa gate. Clara and a young man got out of the car, carrying several bags. The young man said something, and a smile appeared on Clara's face. Sincere and gentle. Then, the two of them, talking and laughing, entered side by side. In an instant, the cold villa was brightly lit, warm like the winter sun. "Boss, aren't we going to see Miss Hawthorne?" Alistair didn't speak, staring blankly at Clara's joyful back. He suddenly realized he hadn't seen Clara smile in a long time. At her parents' grave, Alistair had secretly sworn never to make Clara cry again. He seemed to have achieved that. So when did Clara stop smiling? Alistair couldn't remember. A huge sense of panic and guilt filled his heart, pressing down on him so much that he couldn't speak. It turned out that he was the one who had betrayed her first. At this moment, Alistair completely lost the courage to face Clara. Chapter 16. After tidying up and cooking, Gemma still hadn't returned. Clara decided to go watch Ethan Asher play games. Yes, Clara had only recently found out that Ethan was a game streamer. Because of his good skills and good temper, even without showing his face, he had many fans. Clara secretly searched online. Everyone called him Ethan Ace. Clara felt a little curious, so she knocked gently on the door. After waiting a minute, there was no response. Maybe he didn't hear. Hesitating for a second, unable to contain her curiosity, Clara stealthily pushed open the door to the gaming room. The room was large, but Clara immediately saw the huge monitor in front of Ethan. The game screen was covered with dense, scrolling comments, and at first glance they were all praises and admiration for him. "Awesome! Ethan Ace's moves are god tier. Stop showing off, my eyes can't keep up. Only Ethan Ace's live streams and edited videos are done by one person. Seriously, Ethan Ace, are you really not planning to join a pro team?" Ethan had his back to the door, his hands constantly swiping on his phone, occasionally answering fans' questions. Suddenly, he saw a comment saying there was a figure behind him. He turned his head and met Clara's furtive gaze. "Clara? Ethan?" Clara froze on the spot, not knowing whether to advance or retreat. Ethan tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "Want to watch?" Clara stomped her foot in embarrassment. "Just bored, just taking a look, just a look." A slight curve touched Ethan's lips, which Clara didn't see. But as he bent down, this faint smile was captured by the live stream camera, immediately causing the chat to explode. Holy crap, did Ethan Ace just show his face? Is that the point? Did Ethan Ace just smile? Who is this woman? What's her relationship with Ethan Ace? Secret girlfriend? Old fan here, first time seeing this. Ethan Ace, don't forget your persona is the cool tech geek. Ethan Ace, read the chat. Ethan Ace, reply. Ethan covered the camera, ignored the flood of comments, and walked over to Clara. He took Clara's wrist and settled her beside him. "Here, it's clearer." Clara blinked, feeling the residual warmth on her skin. Didn't Gemma say Ethan was a bit of a neat freak and didn't like physical contact? Seeing her staring at his phone, Ethan thought Clara wanted to play too and handed her the phone. Clara was startled and waved her hands repeatedly. No, I don't know how. I'll just watch you play." Ethan didn't speak and took out another phone. A few minutes later, game screens appeared on both phones. It's okay, just follow me. Clara looked at him, then peeked at the chat. Seeming to sense Clara's worry, Ethan said softly, "It's okay, I'm here." Seeing that the chat only contained some surprised and teasing comments, Clara finally relaxed a bit and focused on the game. Just like that, Clara, playing a support hero who could basically just follow someone around, won several games with Ethan. At first, she didn't understand anything, so Ethan patiently explained how to operate, what items to buy. When a teammate complained that Clara was bad, Ethan, with a cold face, silently carried the team to victory, dropping a "you're nothing special" at the end. The live chat room was swooning over Ethan, everyone calling him Dad or Papa. Seeing that she hadn't caused Ethan any trouble, Clara gradually relaxed. Ethan wasn't very talkative. He only occasionally picked simple questions from the chat to answer. Clara became a temporary host, chatting with the fans in the live stream from time to time. Just as both of them were immersed in the game world, Gemma's knock sounded at the door. Chapter 17. Because meeting Alistair had delayed her, Gemma didn't get home until midnight. Food was on the table, but Clara was nowhere to be found. Just as she was about to call, she heard faint voices coming from the gaming room. The gaming room was built specifically for Ethan, but he complained that Gemma always disturbed him. So he had moved out a long time ago and didn't stream from here. Why the change of heart today? Ever since he found out Clara was coming to New York, Ethan had been unusually active in front of her. 2 days ago, he even used an extremely flimsy excuse to move back in. Thinking of this, Gemma's mind stirred. Could it be? "Gem, you're back." Seeing Gemma standing motionless at the door, Clara waved at her excitedly. "Come look, Eth helped me win so many games." "Really?" Gemma looked at Ethan with a half smile. "Didn't you say you don't usually play with girls?" Clara was puzzled. "Girls. No matter how you count it, he should call me sis, right?" Gemma was speechless. In this aspect, Clara was really clueless. Ethan glanced coolly at his sister and told his fans he was ending the stream. Then, under Gemma's teasing gaze, he pushed Clara out. "Let's go, time to eat." Clara felt something was strange, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. She could only smile awkwardly at Gemma and was forced downstairs. Looking at their retreating backs, Gemma smiled playfully. Well, he wasn't even trying to hide his intentions. No wonder he hadn't been willing to call her sis. She just wondered when Clara would notice. At the dinner table, Clara asked Gemma why she was back so late. Gemma was conflicted. Logically, she shouldn't hide from Clara that Alistair had come looking for her. After all, his car was parked outside their door. But just now, seeing Ethan's attentiveness towards Clara, she worried about her brother getting hurt. After much thought, Gemma asked cautiously, "Clara, you, right now about Alistair?" "Oh, what I mean is, do you still like him?" Not knowing how to say it, Gemma decided to just throw caution to the wind. Clara paused, the smile on her face fading slightly. "Why do you suddenly ask?" Gemma caught Ethan's stiff expression, sighed inwardly, and said jokingly, "Why else? You're starting your new job next week. I'm just afraid you acted on impulse. What if one day Alistair comes knocking, tells you it was all a misunderstanding, and coaxes you back with a few words? Then I, who's been providing food, shelter, and support, wouldn't I suffer a huge loss?" Clara chuckled. "Don't worry, what misunderstanding could there be? I've said everything clearly, and Uncle Alistair has a new home now. Towards him. From now on, I only have the respect a junior has for an elder." Ethan visibly relaxed. Gemma asked again, "But what if there really was some misunderstanding?" Clara fell silent. A misunderstanding. But misunderstandings can only make people sigh. They can't reignite dead love. Seeing Clara silent, Gemma asked again, "Clara, if Alistair came and told you he loves you too, would you still be able to stand by your current choice?" Clara looked blankly into the air. Ethan lowered his head, veins bulging on his hands, one lost in thought, the other in panic. Both fell silent because of Gemma's words. Gemma looked back and forth between them, feeling a slight headache. Why was romance even more complicated than business? Just as Gemma was about to change the subject, Clara finally spoke. "Gem, not every seed can survive when drenched by a heavy rain. My seed died when I left. Misunderstanding or fact, a dead seed is destined not to bloom." Gemma understood. "So if he comes looking for you, will you still see him?" Ethan also understood, his pace of eating quickening. Clara nodded. "Of course. No matter what, he's still the Uncle Alistair who raised me. Even if there's no romantic love, familial affection can't be severed. Clara leaned affectionately against Gemma. So don't worry, I'm going to rely on you for a lifetime. Gemma raised an eyebrow and served her some food. No problem, I'll make sure to fatten you up nicely. Ethan didn't fall behind. Eat. Clara felt helpless, tearfully gaining 2 pounds. Chapter 18. The next day, Clara was awakened by hunger. Just as she was about to go to the kitchen to get something to eat, she saw Ethan frying an egg. He was wearing a pink apron, and the bright sunlight outside softened the coldness and distance about him. In the light and shadow, he looked like a doting husband. Clara was amused by her own thoughts and accidentally startled Ethan. He turned his head, looked at Clara quizzically, seemingly asking her what she was laughing about. Clara chuckled sheepishly and patted her stomach. Can I bum a meal? Ethan's eyes lit up with an imperceptible doting look. Go sit, it'll be ready soon. Clara obediently sat down. 2 minutes later, Ethan brought over a fried egg and date and millet porridge, placing them in front of her. It's hot, be careful. For some reason, Clara always felt that Ethan was overly careful with her. His words and actions always gave her the feeling that he was treating her like a child. Just like last night, he could have just asked her to come in, but he personally came to lead her. Seeing Clara lost in thought after taking only a couple of bites, Ethan thought the breakfast wasn't to her liking and said awkwardly, If you don't like it, don't force yourself. Clara reflexively shook her head. No, it's delicious. Seeing Ethan fall silent again, Clara couldn't help but ask him, do you? Not like me. Ethan froze, his hand holding the chopsticks trembled, and his ears turned bright red. What? I like you very much. Clara hadn't expected such a strong reaction and scratched her head. But you never call me by my name. I thought I did something wrong, offended you. Ethan pursed his lips, not daring to look at her. No, I just don't want to call you sis. And I didn't know what else to call you, so. Clara breathed a sigh of relief. It's okay. If you don't mind, you can call me Clara. Ethan suddenly looked up, his eyes sparkling. His gaze was direct and intense, and Clara found it hard to ignore. Her heart skipped a beat, and her face felt slightly warm. Clara didn't understand. Had she said something extraordinary? Why was he so happy? What's wrong? Clara took a bite of food, conveniently averting her gaze. Ethan stared at her intently, his lips slightly parted. Clara. Clara, his tone was gentle, with a youthful shyness. His voice was tender, like a lover whispering in her ear. At this moment, Clara seemed to understand something. But why? They shouldn't have had any interaction before this. She looked at Ethan uneasily, tentatively speaking, Are you? Ethan's expression tightened, but he didn't back down, looking straight at her. His gaze was firm and insistent. He didn't seem to intend to hide it. Clara understood. Yet she felt even more helpless. At least for now, she had no intention of starting a new relationship. Moreover, this person was her best friend's younger brother. Clara lowered her eyelids, pondering for a moment. Ring, ring, ring. Ethan swallowed nervously and answered the phone, looking slightly flustered. After a brief, low conversation, Ethan prepared to go out. I'm going to the training facility. Clara. Wanna come? His lips were pressed into a thin line, his eyes hopeful. If she hadn't noticed Ethan's feelings, Clara, bored as she was, would have gone with him. But now, she forced a slight smile. No thanks, I'll go check out your sister's company, get familiar with it. Ethan's eyes darkened, and his whole demeanor slumped. He looked at Clara with a wronged and bashful expression. He frowned, about to speak, but then silently went upstairs to change. Before leaving, he said with his back to Clara, I won't give up. Chapter 19. She said she was going to find Gemma, but everyone at the company was very busy. Clara didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble, so she only stayed for a while and then left. Walking aimlessly in the city, Clara felt a little lonely. The streets were bustling with traffic, and pedestrians hurried along. It seemed everyone had their own destination. Only she, after pointing her toes in several directions, still didn't know where to go next. Her thoughts uncontrollably drifted to the past, to her parents, to the dowry her parents left her, to Alistair. Then they shifted to Ethan's youthful face and his frank affection. Clara couldn't help but smile bitterly. The Ethan of today was so similar to the her of the past. Because of this, Clara was even more reluctant for Ethan to get entangled. Clara felt that this matter had to be clarified with Ethan as soon as possible, lest he end up as devastated as she had been. Lost in thought, Clara didn't notice the electric scooter approaching from around the corner. Bang! Clara only felt her vision darken, then a huge impact knocked her to the ground. Her head felt muddled as if stirred, and a buzzing sound rang in her ears. Her limbs were scraped raw against the ground, and her internal organs felt like they were tied in knots. Clara felt that with every breath, there was a strong smell of blood. Screams from passers-by and various fragmented inquiries came from around her. Clara wanted to speak, but couldn't make a sound. In a hazy state of consciousness, a pair of large hands held her tightly in an embrace. The force was so strong it felt like he wanted to embed her into his own body. Clara felt even more pain. She tried her best to see the person in front of her clearly, but all she saw was a blur of crimson. Hurts. After finally managing to utter one word, the person held her even tighter. Clary, don't be afraid, Clary. The ambulance will be here soon. Clary, don't sleep. Be good. Clara only felt the voice was very familiar, but her mind was like a malfunctioning tape, unable to recall any image. Her eyelids grew heavier and heavier, but that person kept talking to her, telling her not to sleep. After an unknown amount of time, Clara finally couldn't hold on any longer and completely lost consciousness. Before opening her eyes, Clara smelled the distinct antiseptic scent of a hospital. Her body felt like it had fallen apart, painful and weak. She opened her eyes with difficulty and tried to move, but was interrupted by an angry shout from the bedside. Don't move, isn't it painful enough already? Clara was dazed for a moment, then slowly turned her head. It wasn't an illusion. It really was Alistair Sterling. She opened her dry, cracked lips, wanting to speak to him, but was interrupted again. Don't talk, have some water first. Alistair picked up a cup and tested the temperature. After confirming it was okay, he raised the hospital bed and fed her water bit by bit. After drinking water and resting for a while, Clara finally felt she had some strength. Uncle Alistair, why are you here? Alistair's face was grim, filled with anger and worry. Why am I here? Shouldn't I be asking you that? Although Clara's mind was still not clear, she could tell Alistair was angry. But why? Perhaps the letter wasn't clear enough and now she was injured, so it made him worry. Well, no elder would not worry seeing a junior get hurt. Thinking of this, Clara smiled at Alistair. Uncle Alistair, don't worry, it just looks serious. I feel much better now. Alistair snorted coldly and said something unrelated. You don't need to call me Uncle Alistair anymore. Clara paused, not knowing what he meant by that. I've already atoned before your parents' graves. From now on, we'll be on equal terms. Chapter 20. Atoned. Clara suddenly remembered the day she paid respects to her parents, Alistair's expression and actions as he knelt before their graves. So he really was atoning. But Clara was even more confused. Why would Alistair specifically go to atone because of a form of address? Clara moved her lips, wanting to ask, but fearing she might displease Alistair, she changed the subject. Uncle Alistair, are you here in New York on a business trip? Seeing Clara ignore his words, Alistair's face darkened. Clary, don't make me say it a second time. Clara froze, looking at Alistair with utter confusion. She had called him that since she was little. To suddenly ask her to change, she really didn't know what to call him. Alistair pursed his lips. Haven't you always wanted to call me by my name? You can call me that from now on if you want. Clara was stunned, looking at him in disbelief, and unconsciously called out his name. Alice. Alistair? Alistair's heart skipped a beat, and he visibly brightened. At this moment, he felt again that he and Clara still had a chance. Boss, Miss Hawthorne's hospital admission procedures are complete. Just as Alistair was about to say more, Emily's knock interrupted him. Seeing the tall figure at the door, Clara was surprisingly calm and even greeted her politely. Miss Carter, you're here too. I'm sorry to have troubled you. Emily looked at Clara with surprise, then nodded respectfully. Miss Hawthorne, you're too kind. This is what I should do. Clara was slightly surprised. The Emily now was different from before. Alistair waved Emily away. You can go out first. I have something to say to Clary alone. Yes, boss. Before leaving, Emily added, if there's anything you need my cooperation on, please contact me anytime. Finally, she gave Clara a deep look, closed the door, and left. Seeing their completely different way of interacting, Clara had a faint guess. She had originally thought she would feel even a little bit happy, because this at least showed that her feelings had not been in vain, but she also felt helpless. They had been together for over a decade. Alistair had never treated her as an equal, presumptuously sheltering her under his wing. He never asked if she wanted it. As for anger and resentment, Clara really had no grounds. So, though a myriad of thoughts churned in her mind, her emotions remained completely flat. "Clary," Alistair sat by the bed, his back to Clara. "Are you still willing to listen to my explanation?" Without waiting for Clara's reply, Alistair spoke at length on his own. He talked about his career, about Miss Carlyle's provocations, about his helplessness, about his plans, about the future he had envisioned. These were the beautiful things Clara had once dreamed of, now slowly recounted by Alistair. She listened quietly, her heart no longer stirring. For her, since she had let go, the truth really didn't matter. This Clara made Alistair feel even more powerless. The small bit of luck he had just felt vanished in her silence. Alistair lowered his head, his clasped hands showing prominent veins. He said, "Clary, it was all truly a misunderstanding. Do you understand?" Clara nodded with a light laugh, as if she had just heard a story. "Uncle Alistair, you've worked hard." It wasn't perfunctory, but a genuine feeling of exhaustion for Alistair. He had truly shouldered too much, but Alistair's heart shattered at her words. He covered his face with his hands, trying to stop the tears from falling. He knew they could never go back to how things were, but Alistair was unwilling to give up. He turned his head, his eyes moist. "Clary, do you still love me?" Clara tilted her head, her expression serious. "Uncle Alistair, as a junior, I will respect and love you for the rest of my life." Beyond that, there was nothing else. Alistair looked at her for a long time, then gave a bitter smile. In Clara's eyes, he could no longer see infatuation or romantic love, only the respect and gratitude of a junior towards an elder, just as she had said. Chapter 21. Uncle Alistair. Clara wanted to ask about the dowry again, but she was interrupted by the hurried arrival of Gemma and Ethan. "Clara, how are you? Clara, are you okay?" Alistair was pushed aside by the siblings, feeling like an outsider as he watched them fuss over Clara. At this moment, heartache and regret nearly suffocated Alistair. The current Clara, it seemed, no longer needed him. "Mr. Sterling, thank you for today." Gemma briefly checked Clara's condition, and after confirming she was fine, she took the initiative to thank Alistair. Alistair composed himself, his gaze towards Gemma filled with displeasure. "If there's a next time, whether Clary is willing or not, I will take her away." Gemma frowned, confronting him directly. "Today's incident was my oversight, I admit. But if Clara isn't willing, I'd like to see who dares take her away." Hearing this, Ethan immediately stood beside Gemma, looking at Alistair warily. Clara felt a headache coming on, not knowing how things had suddenly escalated like this. "Please calm down, this is a hospital." The Asher siblings snorted and stepped back a couple of paces. Alistair also averted his gaze. Clara then tried to soothe Alistair. "Uncle Alistair, I'm 23 now. I can take care of myself." Alistair immediately retorted, "You ended up in the hospital the day after leaving me. Is this what you call taking care of yourself?" Clara found it amusing. What did this have to do with leaving him or not? Alistair seemed to have forgotten that she had recently been hospitalized because of his plan. But saying such things now would only make the atmosphere more rigid. So Clara patiently explained, "Uncle Alistair, this time it was because I wasn't paying attention to the road myself, that's why I got hurt. It really has nothing to do with anyone else. Don't worry, I'll definitely be careful in the future and won't cause you any more trouble." Alistair's heart ached, and he subconsciously muttered, "I never felt you were trouble for me." Clara couldn't hear him and continued on her own, "Uncle Alistair, I'm very sorry I didn't say goodbye to you in person, causing you to worry and chase me all the way to New York. I originally wanted to say it face to face, but because so many things happened, my thoughts were also very chaotic, so I told you in that way. I hope you're not angry." Seeing Alistair just listening, Clara continued, "Actually, I was still very happy to see Uncle Alistair again today, because I suddenly realized that it's better to say goodbye in person. That way, neither of us will have regrets." Alistair clenched his fists tightly, his heart feeling like it was being fried in oil. Clara's every word pierced his heart like a needle. Uncle Alistair, I am very grateful to you for letting me grow up healthy, happy, and fortunate. But you protected me too well, not letting me experience any storms. To be honest, sometimes I feel like a failure. I'm in my 20s and still can't find my way in the future. I've really thought a lot recently. About the past, I hope we can both let go. About the future, I hope I can walk it on my own. Speaking here, Clara's voice became soothing. Uncle Alistair, from now on, we will each be fine, right? Alistair understood the emphasis she placed on those two words. After a long pause, he managed a difficult nod. Yes. Clara let out a breath, seemingly relieved. Thank you, Uncle Alistair. Then, Uncle Alistair, please go attend to your business. Gemma and Ethan are here, it'll be fine. Alistair's entire face was hidden in shadow, his movements slightly sluggish. Everyone saw the sorrow and pain enveloping him, but no one pointed it out. He just quietly turned around, his body hunched like an old man in his dotage, and slowly pushed open the door to leave, step by step. Chapter 22. Emily watched as Alistair, like a walking shell of a man, shuffled to her front. Boss, are you all right? This sorrowful Alistair made Emily's heart pound with fear. She wanted to support him, but Alistair waved her hand away. He stared blankly into the distance, his voice hoarse and weak. Let's go. Emily glanced at the hospital entrance, unable to resist asking, Aren't you going to wait for Miss Hawthorne? Alistair's Adam's apple bobbed repeatedly, and a sheen of moisture welled in the corners of his eyes. She said, We should go our separate ways and be well. Emily bit her lip, feeling that she bore a great deal of responsibility for how things had turned out. Boss, let me go explain to Miss Hawthorne again. I said a lot of unpleasant things to her before. She must still be angry. No matter what, I should personally apologize to her. Alistair's eyes lit up for a moment, then quickly dimmed. None of that matters to her anymore. With that, Alistair walked away, dejected. Watching his slow steps, Emily eventually followed him. The boss's current state made her truly worried about him being alone. The plane landed, again late at night. The car drove to the entrance of Willow Creek, and Alistair got out. Emily, worried, offered to see him inside but was left standing there. Pushing open the door, the room was filled with roses and candles, warm and sweet under the soft light. This was his recreation of the scene where Clara first confessed to him. Now, it seemed like a joke. Alistair stared blankly for a long time, then carefully walked through the roses and candles to the bedroom. He quietly took out a hidden box, then found a lighter and quickly went downstairs. Next, he turned on the record player, put on a soothing piece of music, and then lit all the candles on the floor. Turning off the lights, Alistair walked among the candles, swaying to the music. In the dim candlelight, Alistair's figure swayed in the empty room. Like a solitary flower blooming in the night, cool and lonely. Alistair held the ring box, and as if possessed, slowly knelt facing the staircase, as if his beloved was walking towards him. Alistair looked ahead and spoke piously. Clary, I love you. Please marry me, okay? In the darkness, Alistair seemed to truly hear Clara's reply. A happy smile spread across his lips, and he stood up ecstatically, wanting to put the ring on his lover's hand. But the music suddenly stopped. The ring fell from mid-air, landing silently on the carpet. The beautiful world he had imagined also vanished like a bubble. Alistair collapsed to the floor, letting out a crazed, foolish laugh. Fake, fake, it's all fake. The thorns of the roses, the flames of the candles, left dense wounds on Alistair's hands. But he paid no attention, frantically destroying everything before him. After an unknown amount of time, Alistair was perhaps tired, exhausted. He staggered to his feet, stumbling in the darkness towards the wine rack. He fumbled for a moment, randomly opened a bottle, took a large gulp, but immediately spat it out. Wrong. This isn't the taste. He shook his head and violently smashed the bottle on the floor. He grabbed another bottle and smashed it too. Just like that, he smashed every bottle on the wine rack but couldn't find the taste he was looking for. Alistair stared at the empty wine rack for a while. Then, disregarding the shards and spilled wine on the floor, he curled up and cried like a child. Clary. Chapter 23. Clara stayed in the hospital for 2 days before being discharged. But the Asher siblings still treated her like an invalid. One wouldn't let her go to work, the other wouldn't let her go out. Seeing she was utterly bored, Ethan suggested teaching her to play games. And so, now the two of them were each on a sofa, playing intensely. Team fight, Clara's body swayed left and right with her hand movements. Oh no, the marksman died again. Are you sure I shouldn't go help him? Ethan was very cool. Just follow me, Clara exclaimed again. This isn't working, the mid laner got ganked again. If I don't go, our teammates will call us the joined at the hip duo again. Ethan remained unfazed. It's fine, just follow me. Clara was still hesitating when suddenly, a teammate's curse came from the phone. Support, are you effing blind? Don't you know how to protect the carry? All you do is follow the jungler around. What the hell are you doing? Sightseeing? Joined at the hip duo, so effing disgusting. Clara decisively muted the game voice, then shrugged, unfazed. I knew it. These past few days, Clara had been insulted so much she'd developed a thick skin. Ethan chuckled lightly. All right, let's go. I'll take you for revenge. Seeing Ethan's smile, Clara immediately perked up. Usually at this time, it was when Ethan would show off his skills and dominate the game. Sure enough, a minute later, a series of kill announcements came from the phone. Double kill, triple kill, quadra kill, penta kill. Clara secretly unmuted the microphone. Sure enough, it was dead silent. Seeing the game was about to be won, Clara finally dared to speak on the mic. Why aren't you cursing anymore? Stunned, huh? We totally owned you. As soon as she finished speaking, the victory sound played on her phone. Clara couldn't hold it in any longer and lay on the sofa, laughing heartily. Suddenly, Ethan's face filled her entire vision. Pale skin, long, curly eyelashes, and an undeniable affection in his eyes. Clara found herself lost in thought. This happy? Ethan's head lowered further, his breath fanning across her eyebrows. Clara snapped back to her senses slightly, her heart pounding uncontrollably, as if it would leap out of her chest. This little brat, how could he be so lacking in propriety? Too close, move away. Ethan, instead of retreating, moved closer, giving Clara the illusion that he was about to kiss her. She frantically tried to push him away but found her hands restrained. Clara. Clara? Ethan's lips stopped at the tip of her nose, his voice a tender, lingering caress. Clara felt her whole body burning, her consciousness about to drown in his eyes. Ring, 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 the phone rang sharply, startling Clara. Smack! She violently pushed Ethan away and in a reflex slapped him. Then she flusteredly answered Gemma's call. Gemma asked her what she wanted to eat. She would bring it when she got off work. Clara mumbled a few words and hung up. Ethan was still clutching his face, standing there stubbornly looking at her. Clara had once looked at Alistair with such a gaze. Clara felt an inexplicable pang of pity and sighed after a long moment. We need to talk. Ethan nodded silently and sat down on the sofa. His eyes remained fixed on her. Clara got straight to the point. It's impossible between us. Give up. Ethan pursed his lips. Why is it impossible? Do you like someone else? Clara said earnestly. Your sister and I are good friends. You are her brother, which makes you like a brother to me. It's impossible for me to be with my own brother. Ethan didn't back down, but the fact is, we're not related by blood, nor are we on the same household register. Legally speaking, even if we get married and have children, no one can object. Clara felt as if struck by lightning. What a similar situation, what similar words. Only in the past, she was the one saying them. Clara suddenly felt that fate had played a huge joke on her. She had now become the Alistair of the past. Chapter 24. From then on, Clara began to deliberately avoid Ethan. She even disregarded Gemma's advice and started sleeping at the company every day. Under this workaholic mode, Clara quickly made a name for herself in the jewelry design world. She was even nominated for the Gold Award at the International Diamond Jewelry Design Competition. This led to Clara being constantly busy, with even less time to go home, so Ethan chased after her every day. If Clara stayed at the company, he would deliver 3 lovingly prepared meals a day. If Clara had to go on a business trip, he would immediately buy a plane ticket and follow closely. If Clara didn't want to see him, he would time his appearances perfectly to avoid her. If Clara got drunk, he would immediately transform into a guardian angel, making soup and cleaning up without fail. Later, even Gemma couldn't stand it anymore and tried to persuade both of them. But one stubbornly refused to give up, and the other stubbornly refused to yield. It left Gemma helpless, and eventually she threw her hands up in despair and stopped interfering. Today was the award ceremony for the design competition. At the venue, Clara unexpectedly saw Alistair and Emily. Because they were some distance apart, they only nodded in greeting. The ceremony began quickly, with awards and winners announced as time passed. When the gold award was announced, even though she was mentally prepared, Clara was still incredibly excited. No matter how she thought about it, this seemed to be the highlight of her life. It belonged solely to Clara Hawthorne. Here, the person I want to thank the most is my uncle, Alistair Sterling. Without him, there would be no Clara Hawthorne today. During her speech, Clara saw Alistair in the audience, smiling at her. At that moment, she was genuinely grateful to him, and so she said it. After the ceremony, Clara saw Alistair and Emily waiting downstairs. Alistair was wearing a well-fitting suit, holding a box in his hand. Emily wore a solid color gown and stood behind him. Looking closer, Clara noticed Alistair looked much more haggard, an unshakable sorrow in his eyes. Clara smiled faintly at them. "Uncle Alistair, Miss Carter, long time no see." Alistair smiled and handed her the box. "Congratulations, I hope you'll like this gift." Clara paused slightly. "This is." When the box was opened, it was, to her surprise, the same set of jewelry Emily had worn. Emily looked ashamed. "I'm sorry, Miss Hawthorne. To deal with Miss Carlyle back then, I took the liberty of borrowing this set of jewelry." "I didn't know it was your." Clara shook her head, her fingertips gently tracing the gemstones. "It doesn't matter anymore. I'm already very happy to see it again. Besides, what my parents left me was originally just a design sketch. Ultimately, this set of jewelry still belongs to Uncle Alistair." Alistair unconsciously opened his hand slightly, as if wanting to embrace Clara. But in the end, his hand only landed on her shoulder. "No, it has always belonged to you. Today, it's just being returned to its rightful owner." Clara's movement paused slightly, tears welling up in her eyes. Her parents' sketch, Alistair's gemstones. At this moment, Clara felt inexplicably moved. She couldn't help but hug Alistair. "Thank you, Uncle Alistair." Alistair raised his hand, intending to hug her back, but seeing the anxious figure outside the floor-to-ceiling window, he lowered it. "Clary, have you and Ethan not sorted things out yet?" Clara followed Alistair's gaze and immediately saw Ethan, his face full of tension. Clara subconsciously let go of Alistair, looking somewhat helpless. "Uncle Alistair, Ethan and I." Alistair took in her reaction. "Clary, listen to your uncle. If you love him too, don't make him wait too long. Otherwise, you'll regret it in the future." Clara looked at the jewelry in her arms, then looked up at Alistair's sorrowful expression. Finally, she ran towards Ethan, who had been waiting for her all along. "Uncle Alistair, I'm going to him." Watching Clara's eager, retreating figure, Emily was puzzled. "Boss, don't you love Miss Hawthorne anymore?" Alistair loosely clasped his right hand. "Love her? How could I not love her? But I've already lost the one I loved. For the rest of my life, I only hope she can spend her life together with the one she loves." The end.